If you had an elevator pitch for a company move in Chattanooga, what would it be?
Tell us what you do, don't assume we know, and tell us what you need. And I was the one helping out. In the first years, we were trying to get some of these apps, but they weren't very good. So we just put two big whiteboards up there with the markers. One of them said what you need and what you do, and people would just write on there. And then we took that and disseminated afterwards. For future events, we got an event app that helped that a little bit. You never know where the connections can lead. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle. If you're a founder and you want to reach out to me, suggest a time for coffee. Don't say, let's get coffee the next 2 weeks. Say, are you available next Friday at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m.? The other thing, too, is it's when I talk to founders, your pitch that we're talking about, the elevator pitch, that's your movie trailer, not your movie. Communication is leadership. So if you're working with other folks or groups, whether they're direct reports or colleagues like I have, let them know what's going on, and sooner rather than later, and just keep them updated.
My most anxious part is always the intro. I don't know why, because it's like, you want to make it like good, but what does good even mean? Because like sometimes it feels like a PBS broadcast. Like today we have Jay Shaffer here with us.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. That's the thing when I get up and give a talk. If you know your first couple of sentences, if you have those kind of not scripted, but know the points that you want to hit, you do that. And then if you get through that, then you feel comfortable.
Right.
It was Edward Murrow, the CBS News guy from World War II. He said, there's always butterflies in your stomach. The trick is to make them fly in formation. I always thought that was good.
Still trying to learn that.
It's just it's natural to be. I mean, I've got Sam over here looking at me and like, oh my gosh,
just glaring.
Glaring right through you. I know.
See, I like leaving this stuff in there. I think it's more entertaining to listen. I prefer the podcast where it feels like you're the fly on the wall. And like, oh, let's listen to a conversation, and it just feels more real. So probably just leave this in. But I guess I'll do the official intro now. So welcome back to another episode, Spectruss Speakeasy podcast. Today I've got Jay Shaffer here, VentureSouth, Atlanta Tech Angels, Sun Microsystems back in the day. We're going to talk about all kinds of things, your path. Thanks for coming on and chatting with me. I'm excited.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks for the opportunity. Look forward to speaking with you.
How was that intro? Was that okay?
That's fine.
Nailed it?
Yeah.
Perfect.
You're a pro.
Pro. That's what I like to hear. So we met just a few weeks ago from networking, and I forgot, maybe Tim Smith or someone suggested we chat. And one thing when I walked away is like, we are listening to and reading a lot of the same things overlap, but in my notes this morning, I noticed all these different podcast suggestions you gave me, and so constantly learning. And so I'm excited about this conversation to learn more from you and hear more of that. But tell me something about your story, because it goes back to, Sun Microsystems, and we're talking a little bit before this, because then you had Netscape was the big browser then, and really the early days of big computing and the internet. And
I feel very fortunate. We were in the Bay Area, and I was fortunate to work for Sun Microsystems. They just hit about $1 billion in revenue, and between 1990 and the 2000.com, they grew to $20 billion. Wow! So, and it had one of the original 4 founders was Scott McNeely, and he guided the company through all those days. So, in some ways, Sun was like a big startup. And one of the things we used to, when I joined in '91, the company was 75% desktop machines. And then there were competitors that came in, Silicon Graphics and other companies, and they had to switch. They pivoted to desk sides, which are servers now. And then it became 75% servers. So they just said, hey, and Scott McNeil was famous for saying, if we don't obsolesce our product, somebody else will. Yeah. So always continually, you position your product, then you follow your customers. That was one of the lessons we learned there. And then IBM Global Services used to give hardware away and send a team of consultants in. So they started a professional services group. And I was fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. In 1995, the head of the East Coast Professional Services brand new business unit was based in Atlanta, and I went to work for him. So it was like a startup within a big company.
Wow. What was that like day to day? Was it always something new, or did you have everything? Because when I think of startups, I think of kind of chaos, right? Like everyone's trying to figure it all out and get going, but that's for a big system. So was it different than a startup like you deal with now, or was it kind of similar, just owned by a bigger
There are
company?
some similarities and some big differences. The similarities were we didn't know what we were trying to do. Let's put something together, test and learn quickly. So the idea was there's all these, the competition was giving away hardware and charging to have people install it and implement some kind of plan. So we had to figure out how we can compete against that. And a lot of these salespeople were used to just selling the boxes and then had to go to the deck and then go to the next customer. So we had to put together projects, and it was in some ways it was like a early stage startup. We had to say which of these projects are we going to do. So we had to have a way to rank which are the best opportunities. So I sat with the general manager for the east half of the United States, and we figured out first you want to have a way to rank the this project that we might take on. Is it easy, hard, or medium?
Yeah.
How much is involved? Kind of a scoping, and then what kind of pricing and how much money we might make off of it. So in the early days, we were just trying to get any deals we could, and then as the pipeline grew, we had to figure out which ones to prioritize. So that's how it was similar to startups.
In some ways, it's kind of similar. I imagine you've probably seen with AI now, where like ChatGPT and Claude, apparently they're putting teams together to do the same sort of thing to help basically get it launched in small businesses, because there's this, businesses need help implementing it, right? And the more of it the business will implement it, the more their usage will go up and the more money they'll make. But it sounds kind of similar to what you're doing, or was it completely different? Am I misunderstanding?
Well, it was a culture change to say, hey, instead of just dropping off the hardware, we're going to take interest in the customer and help. Most of the time they were T&M, which is time and materials. We'll give you hands to help implement the Sun hardware. So that was the early stage to get growing. And over time, you could develop into what were fixed price projects, which is probably similar in your business. And you could say, we'll just charge you an hourly rate until this is done. Or let's help you figure out what a deliverable is and then try and price that.
Yeah.
So most things are 80-20. It was probably 80% time and materials and 20% fixed priced. But again, as these projects came in, we had to figure out which ones to pursue and which ones aren't as good of prospects. Some of them, they might be strategic or whatever. So we just put together, and I think I'm a keep it simple, stupid type of person. We call them 1, 2, 3. 1 was a description of the project. 2 was some kind of risk profile, how much was involved in it. And then the 3rd was kind of a rudimentary budget, how many people you'd need for how long and what type of markup if it was T&M, or margin you might make if it was fixed price.
Gotcha.
So it was kind of fun just kind of sorting through all that.
So how long were you there, and what was your next thing out of that?
I ended up probably in my 14 years at Sun, I was probably in the professional services for 8 or 9 of those years. And it was interesting as we grew. You were saying the similarities were there's a lot of unknowns and we had to test and learn and continually try things. The big difference, a startup within Sun, we already had people, policies, and printers. When we did our own startup, we had to get hires. We had to have, how are we going to do this? I mean, Sun had policies in place, and a big billion-dollar company had already lots of operating rules that we fell within. And the other thing we joked about was printers. We already had printers on the network. Everything, I mean, Sun was, everything was network back then. So I was using email in 91, and we used to say, don't put an attachment on email, just send a link to somebody and let them click on it. So that was kind of their business model back then. If you bought a PC, you were the system administrator. If you were at Sun, you had a desktop machine that was networked to all the other ones. So it was the way things are now.
Right. And so what was your next gig after that?
Oh, well, there was a time must have been late 1999, that Sun, AOL, and Netscape decided to form this confederation, and they were looking for people to help join. They had to start a professional services group for that. And I said, oh, that sounds interesting. And I remember one of my friends at Sun said, no good deed goes unpunished. It was an interesting opportunity to work with those 3 companies, Sun, AOL, and Netscape, but it wasn't a merger, it wasn't a partnership, it was just these 3 companies decided to work together. And Sun's negotiating was all of the iPlanet revenue would flow through Sun's books, and then they would reimburse the other partners or the other companies. And so I got a project to Europe where I got to implement Sun Professional Systems processes in Europe for the AOL and Netscape people that were in that group.
Oh, wow. I mean, how long did that last?
Well, the project, it was interesting. There was the difference between a startup and a big company like that was kind of a political football, and that none of the groups wanted to take it on. They wanted to set up a separate business unit for iPlanet. And
Yeah.
so they set up a professional services for iPlanet, and that's where I got involved in setting those policies and how the swim lane diagrams, like here, just how who did what to who during the sales process, and then once the invoices were created, all the way through to customer support. So I was in the early days of whatever PowerPoint predecessor was, making swim lines and diagrams and going to different people in different countries, say, when this happens, this is what you do.
Yeah.
So,
I don't remember a ton about that era technically, because that was a little before my time. I remember getting like an Apple II computer, which I guess that would have been early 90s, something like that, mid 90s. And so I would have been, 95, I was 10. So, but then I do remember AOL and the distinct noise of the dial-up modems and the Netscape browser using that. And I was mentioning earlier, Mark Anderson or
Andreessen.
I always mess up his last
The
name.
one that created the Mosaic browser, which was the predecessor to Netscape.
And then wound up becoming Netscape, right? And
And Netscape, I think, was bought by AOL. So
then AOL, that whole model is pretty fascinating. I mean, basically giving away all the disk, right? And then leveraging the modems. I remember the 56K modems, the noise they made, whenever you dialed up, like it's a long time ago. But a lot of similarities now in some ways, right? I mean, do you see any similarities between back then and now with like what AI is doing and that sort of thing? Because there's still kind of that barrier to human adoption. And it's interesting how AOL took that on, and now we're kind of seeing AI taking that on. How do we get human adoption and people to pick it up?
yeah, well, the technology is always changing, and I think I mentioned Kevin Kelly is one of the founders of Wired magazine, and he said that technology is always changing, so we're perpetual newbies. So just get used to it. So there's people out there, I'm sure, they're still using fax machines, but you just have to adopt to what new is coming along. And the acoustic coupling dial-up modems gave way to Wi-Fi, earlier internal networks, and then Wi-Fi that we're used to nowadays. So you can hook a machine, or your device self-detects the internet, the Wi-Fi. So that's a big improvement over anybody that had to dial a number and then with a modem or things like that.
Right. So then how did you get to what you're doing now as far as looking for companies, investing in companies,
Yeah, there were a couple of steps in between. So Sun Microsystems did professional services, then iPlanet, and I can't remember how the iPlanet unfolded or unwound after that. So, but that must have been early 2000s. It was probably after the .com. Yeah, if you're just a youngster then in 2000 when all the stocks went south on that. And so I did another couple of jobs within Sun. One was working in the OEM group, because there were some people that used the Sun equipment into, like some telecom companies, they would use the internal components of Sun into systems. And then I guess the last group I was in was another iteration of professional services. At that time, my spouse and I were looking at a startup. We had an idea for a startup to build. And so in 2006, we kicked off a company called VoiceQuilt, which was a customizable music box. That was how we started. The idea was, and again, you got to remember, this is before the iPhone came out, that you could send an invitation, customize an invitation, and send it to anybody with a phone anywhere in the world to celebrate a birthday, anniversary, graduation, any type of special event. So you send that email, it's got a unique code for them to click on, call into, and it records a message. The middle portion of was a web-enabled voicemail. So say your mother's having a birthday coming up and you want everybody to wish her happy birthday, they would call this number. The voice messages would come to your account. You could order them whatever way you want to. You could label them however you want to. And we got smart after the initial. We allowed you to upload your music to to what we called the VoiceQuilt. It was a voice, just messages, for this example, of your mother's birthday. And then once you got that finalized, you could download to a music box. So imagine your mother on her birthday getting a little music box, and you open up, it's got voices of family and friends.
Okay.
So it was a great gift. You could also share to social media, but at that time, all there was Facebook and Twitter, but they weren't used very much. But that was an option. It was a viral product. We built a great product. People loved it. We just couldn't sell enough of them fast enough.
Gotcha. And so what years were that?
That's 2006 is when we started, and then we closed it about 6 years later.
Gotcha.
Again, we just, that was one of the important things. And when I meet with founders now, we were selling to individuals over the internet. The gift space was really expensive for customer acquisition cost, and you really have to change people's behavior. We would get people that say, "Oh, well, we'll just wait till our 75th birthday or something instead of now." Right. So that's why channels are so important. An interesting thing that we didn't think of, but we learned a few years in was, and if I was going to start a company like this again, Division I women's soccer coaches would buy VoiceQuilt music boxes for all the graduating seniors. It was a great gift. All the team members would call and leave messages and would sell 6 or 7. There was one coach that probably bought 30 or 40 of them for his team over the years. Yeah. So that's the point. With a startup, you have to figure out where you can get traction quickly and sell into individual families and things like that. That was a challenge. If you can find a channel like women's soccer coaches, Division I soccer coaches, they would do that. So
right, kind of niching down, basically finding a.
Get rich in a niche, find some place where you can get traction quickly. That's one of the most important things that I've learned now that I've been in 4 startups and then now on this side advising startups.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a lot of good learning experiences from that.
It was great. We executed on what we were trying to do. We just didn't realize how hard it was. And at the end, we were thanking people who had helped us along the way. And there's so many people that helped us, and so many people. There was one fellow that would come by on a regular basis, and I said, "You're helping us so much. Just send us an invoice. We really want to pay you." He goes, "Nope. People helped me when I was doing my startup, so I'm just returning the favor." So that's a lesson that I've taken in as well. Just help other founders along the way. And one of the people that we reached out to in Atlanta, he's a visionary in the healthcare space. And in my mind's eye, Sam, I can remember saying, "Well, thank you for helping us so much." And he was like rubbing his hands. He goes, "Oh, so you got some free time? I've got an idea." Anyway, I went to help him launch. It's a nonprofit in the healthcare space called Health Connect South. Okay. And Health Connect South, his thesis was there's so many healthcare players in Atlanta, and they're all in these silos. And they don't know who else is there. And he says they drive by 10 people on the way to Hartsfield Airport that they could do business with to fly to Mayo or Cleveland Clinic. He says, let's get all those people together. So he was the visionary, and I was the tactician. So I said, well, how do you want to do that? You want to do like a website where people could get news? Do you want to do a weekly newsletter? You want to do a monthly meeting, some type of thing like that? He decided on an annual meeting together. And the first one was at Woodruff Arts Center. He does them at the aquarium in downtown Atlanta now. And he invites hundreds of people. And what I remember is the rule for the first one was, tell us what you do, don't assume we know, and tell us what you need. And I was the one helping out that. In the first years, we were trying to get some of these apps, but they weren't very good. So we just put 2 big whiteboards up there with the markers. One of them said, what you need and what you do. And people would just write on there. And then we took that and disseminated afterwards. For future events, we got an event app that helped that a little bit. But and he got different speakers there. And I remember one of the speakers from one of the big organizations in Atlanta in the healthcare space, I think he said, an emergency is no time to exchange business cards with somebody. Mm-hmm. He says you want to meet these people now, make acquaintances for them. So if you do need something, you already have a connection made. So, and that's still, and Health Connect South is still, I think this is the 12th or 13th year it's been around.
Wow. And you kind of have your own version of that in some ways. Like I attended, was it last week, right?
The Chattanooga Founders Forum?
Yeah.
Well, that was a big shout out to Carter Fowler, the CEO and visionary of Totem Labs. We had read one of the books about the Boulder principles, and it says engage the tech stack. And we said, well, let's just get some founders together in a room, get a couple of pizzas, and talk. So you joined us, I think, for Dan
Yeah.
Wyckoff of Branch Technology. Just gave a great story.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Now I've seen their products around, but I hadn't. It's been a while since I've heard one of their pitches or a pitch deck, and it's pretty neat how they're expanded globally. Really cool projects.
Well, to the moon.
Yeah, and to the moon, literally. Yeah, that's very fascinating. And one other before I forget, the whiteboard. The two questions, and it was, what do you need? And
Tell us what you do. Don't assume we know. And what do you need? Those are the two things that Russ, in his opening remarks, Russ LaPerry, said to the people there. He said, this is a first of this type of gathering. All these people, you may not know each other, but you're in the same place. And let's see what we can make happen.
In your opinion, how hard are those two questions? Because they seem very simple, but they can be very challenging. Even the what do you do?
Right.
Like so many times we'll ask companies, well, tell us your elevator pitch. And then 5 minutes later, we're still going. It's like, well,
that's
a long elevator. In Chattanooga, we don't have elevators that long.
Right.
But even the what do you need? I don't know. Like, do you ever get any feedback on that? Have you watched people struggle with those two, just out of curiosity?
Well, it depends. If you're going to a networking event, you should be prepared to do that. That's one of the things. You came to our CFF event, and you saw that I had the name tags pre-printed because we'll have somebody come to an event and put Joe on it. Well, you're not really eager to meet with other people if you're not going to have business cards or give your full name to people. So you never know where the connections can lead. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And you noticed I didn't put a name tag on because I came in late. I did get a slice of pizza.
Okay. But I had one printed up for you.
You did?
So I appreciate
man.
you.
Well,
So that's
thank
okay.
you for doing that.
Well, there's execute. That's one thing. The most important thing is people coming together, making the connections. Because just like the fellow at Health Connect South that said many years ago, emergency is no time to trade the business cards. There's people here that we can help move, bolster the Chattanooga startup ecosystem, and it's easier if you have the connections in place already.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me some of VentureSouth, like what you're looking for there, and kind of your experiences. How has that been going? And
well, we got to before we get to VentureSouth, there's a couple other steps.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. No, because the evolution was I was in the Sun and I was working in startups and thought, oh, these are startups, and then you realize when it's your own money, and even though it's got a lot fewer zeros than it was at Sun, but you don't have policies and printers and all kinds of other things you need to get a business off the ground. That was a challenge. And then Health Connect South, and then I joined a VC-backed company. That was the fourth startup that I was in, and I put my year in. I joined the day the first beta site went open, and so the other definition of technology is something that doesn't quite work yet. So the system was there's a thing called Happy Path, which is how the system is designed to work and how the people interact with it. And so we're pretty far from that happy path. And we identified about 60 or so things that we could do to get people on the happy path. And one of them, for example, was people would come into this space and they didn't know where to go. So we put like footprints on the ground or arrows. That was a way to get people, because when new things come along, you have to change people's behavior. And that's the key to entrepreneurship, is changing customers' behavior.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I'm sure in your business as well, Sam, there's things that you have to do to get people to buy.
Psychological, for sure.
Yeah, and emotional and all the rest. So anyway, where were we? I was at, the last one was VC-backed, so I presented to investors and prepared material for investors on a regular basis. And some Atlanta tech angels had invested in that company. So while I was struggling to get people to the happy path in that company, I would meet for coffee with some of the Atlanta tech angels and say, hey, I've got this issue that I'm working on, or what do you think about this, or how to do that. And they say, after I put my year in, they said, why don't you come to Atlanta Tech Angels? And I'm like, I don't know anything about angel investing. They said, well, you know about founders. And long story short, I joined Atlanta Tech Angels, asked them where they need the most help, and they said screening startups. So I co-lead the screening committee and just started talking to investors. That was November 2019. And if people can remember, by March of 2020, that was the old way that people used to do angel groups, was meet at a law firm in Buckhead, if you spent much time in Atlanta. So it's not, that was one kind of circumstances. And then everything moved to Zoom by March of 2020, which really opened it up. So we could get a lot more people. And yeah, I would laugh because we would tell the companies that came to the law firm to bring printouts of your slide deck because invariably somebody's PC or Mac wouldn't work with the systems that they had there and would spend their time allotted to give us their pitch trying to get to present. So you're talking about your elevator pitch. The elevator pitch doesn't go well when they're plugging leads in and they have a laptop or something.
That's right. Yep.
So, but with Zoom, that's really a difficulty. So it's much easier for people to get through, and we can do more pitches from founders in less time with better quality.
Yeah, yeah. And so at that point, I mean, how many people do you think you're talking to? How many different founders?
So we get about 20 or 25 applications a month. So over the 5+ years, I've seen hundreds of applications of companies. We invite 5 to screening each month. So that's 11 meetings per year. So that's 55 companies. So I see a lot of startups over the time. And then I reach out and speak to founders on a regular basis. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yeah, no, it does. So what's that path, from getting to to them actually getting funding? How long does that take from them submitting an application? And
well, yeah,
it's probably complex, but like the short synopsis of it,
Well, let's see. What I always tell founders, the best place to get money is from customers. There's no better validation of somebody paying you mutually and voluntarily paying you a good exchange of services. That's the best way for a startup to get money. The next best place is partners, suppliers, vendors, anybody that wins when you win. You might have companies that you could like co-market with or work together. You can combine forces to get a sale, and then you have some kind of split. Yeah. That's a much better way to get money, funding, than customers, then partners, suppliers, vendors. And if you can't raise enough money, then you go to outside sources. If you have assets that you can borrow against, a bank might be a good fit for that. But if you are in a position where you want risk capital, angel investors or VCs, we'll talk about the differences there, then they're going to want a piece of you. They're going to want a piece of your business. So the other two groups customers or partners, suppliers, vendors don't usually want equity, don't want to own part of your company. Right. But if a bank will give you money now, they want money back and they want pennies on the dollar for interest. But a VC or an angel investor they'll give you dollars a day with the hopes of 5 or 10 or more dollars in the future.
Right.
So,
So, what is difference? Your definition difference between angels and venture?
Well, that's easy. Angel investors invest their own money.
Okay.
Venture capitalists are investors who have investors. So the venture capitalists, VCs invest between $1 to $6 out of every $100, 1 to 6% roughly. Some can do more, but you can't do less than that. And so they're using other people's money. They charge fees to invest, and then they take an upside if there is a return, they take. That's just the structure. And we could spend the rest of our time talking about all the different ways that they do, but in general, there's typically fees up front, and if there is a successful exit, then they take a part of a portion of that. That's how VCs operate. The angel investors, like Atlantic Angels, were all volunteers, so there's no carry on a deal. Everybody splits whatever exit there is according to your share of investment. And VentureSouth has there's a membership, but then there's a percent that's about 10% if there's a successful exit.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so,
which is much lower than the standard 20 or more percent from VCs.
Okay. And so you're working right now with both, right? I mean, VentureSouth and Atlanta Tech Angels.
Well, I spend my time talking to really smart founders, tell me how they're going to make money, and see if it's a good fit for either of those two angel groups. They're both stage specific. VentureSouth is typically a little bit later stage. Atlanta Tech Angels will do an MVP, which is minimum viable product, a prototype with a paid or unpaid pilot. That's kind of the floor. That means if you have an idea, it's a little bit too early for Atlanta Tech Angels. VentureSouth prefers companies that have several $100,000 of revenue, preferably repeatable processes, and they want to step on the gas. So if ATA is first base, VentureSouth is rounding first on the way to second, second being a Series A or some type of venture capital round. So that's kind of the rough ways. I tell folks, Atlantic Angels sometimes fill out a later stage deal, and VentureSouth on occasion has a few early stage companies that are pre-revenue but with contracts in sight.
I'm guessing with the name Atlanta Tech Angels, all tech companies, or do you go outside of that realm as well?
Well, tech has a wide meaning. Every company has some component of tech to it as well. The interesting thing is Atlanta Tech Angels, half the companies that present at the member meeting are from outside of Georgia. Okay. So we're investors or look for the best opportunities that they can. So VentureSouth's thesis is a day's drive to and from Greenville, South Carolina, which is where they're headquartered. And Chattanooga is on the western frontier of the VentureSouth network. And Atlanta Tech Angels is, from Louisiana to Virginia down to Florida in that area.
Okay.
So we're just looking for early stage companies that are looking to raise money.
And then, like any of those companies you can talk about right now that are partnered with?
Well, I'd like to talk about the companies in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
There's a founder, Ryan Seberg, who went to Baylor, is a football player, played some professional football in the European leagues, and he has developed a workflow product for drug treatment centers. The founding story, and we let Ryan tell it much better than I could, but he had a friend that got hooked on the drugs, the pain-killing drugs, and had an overdose. And so that was part of his desire to help with this process. And we were talking about technology earlier. Apparently, in a drug treatment center, the workflow, there wasn't a piece of software for that. So if you come in, you're patient number 1, you go to bed number 2, you get this, they match the prescription against what was actually dispensed and then produce a report at the end. I may miss a step in there. You need to get Ryan on your program.
Sure.
But his group, his company, he folds right into the existing medical health record. It's just a plug-in to that, and he's got some companies that he is working with, and just it's a SaaS model. So when he puts a new installation up, he gets paid a certain amount for that. So kudos to Ryan. He's worked really hard to get his company to the position it's in now. So Atlanta Tech Angels put a little money into that company yet. Probably not big enough for VentureSouth at this stage.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other exciting ones to share? I'm going to keep prodding.
Well, I think that an exciting company in Chattanooga is Totem.
Okay.
And so they just completed crowdfunding. Okay. So angel investing, to be an angel investor, you have to be an accredited investor and go to sec.gov for the regulations. You think it's straightforward, but there's some trickiness in there. But you have to. There's a wealth criteria and an income criteria, and they're looking at changing that or modifying that. But it's the government works at its own pace, so it'll be some time before those come into place. But anyway, accredited investors are the ones that can invest into the startups. There's something called Reg CF for crowdfunding that anyone can invest into startup companies, and Totem did a round that way recently. I'll tell you about one more just a second. The idea is, or you hear people say, you can bet on the NBA finals, which are coming up. You can buy a lottery ticket, but there are restrictions on you investing in your sister-in-law's startup. And how fair is that? So they're working to crowdfunding as a way to allow a broader audience of people who aren't necessarily accredited investors to invest in a company. VentureSouth partnered with a group called Vicinity. So it's VentureSouth Vicinity. And we raised money for Terran, which is the company based here in Chattanooga that does the football jerseys. Are you a football club guy here?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Well, by football, do you mean like soccer or like football?
The soccer team, the Chattanooga Football Club here.
Okay, CFC.
Their jerseys say Terran on them. Terran makes the jerseys, and they're I actually I know this is a podcast, but I have my Terran pants on now. They're hiking pants, but they look like work pants. And they're
Nice.
great. They're probably the most comfortable pants I have. And so VentureSouth vicinity was able to raise over $400,000 for Terran this past fall through people here in Chattanooga and throughout the Southeast.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's it. And you don't have to be a credit investor. So I'm looking for other companies that might be candidates for a crowdfunding raise.
Okay. And then how are you? I mean, I guess that's where the networking comes in, like the different meetings you have, and that. Like, what's that process like? Finding those, because that could kind of be a needle in a haystack,
So,
right?
well, angel investing is a contact sport. That's what I learned. Being a founder first, and now as an angel investor, if I sat here and twiddled my thumbs and waited for people to knock on my door, probably wouldn't get many good opportunities. So I spent my time talking to founders, talking to other successful business owners here, like Spectruss Speakeasy Lab we're in right now, and see, because you never know it's probably one of the lessons that I learned from Health Connect South. Make those connections earlier, because you never know. I say everybody has a piece of the puzzle, and just talk to different people. Success always leaves footprints. Something that there may be lessons here for somebody to look at Spectruss website, and there may be some things that you and your team has done that another Chattanooga company could benefit from learning some of the lessons that you've learned.
Right.
So that's if you sit back, you won't get the best opportunities. And so just try and make those connections and get in front of people. So
I'm curious now with Bay Area and Atlanta, Chattanooga for the last 6 years, basically, right? Like
5 years, yeah.
Okay, soon after COVID. What are the differences in networking in those three cities? Just making connections of any kind, however that is.
No, that's a great question. Well, one benefit in Chattanooga, it's easy to get around here. Like you can meet people quickly, and so unless you're going on top of one of the mountains, you can meet with somebody in 15 minutes here. And people are open to. That was one of the great surprises. Before I mentioned when we decided to move to Chattanooga, and we put an offer on a house, but it wasn't going to be ready for a couple of months. And so I just started reaching out to people then. And so many people were willing to give me time. Matt and Cam from Brickyard, I would talk to them before we even moved up here. Yeah. And I got all fired up talking to them. Ted Allen was kind enough to give me some time to talk with him. And just, I know I'm going to leave people off this, but there were people before we'd even moved here, just were making connections and trying, learn more about what's going on here. So,
yeah, I'm just curious, being, I'm 41 years local here in Chattanooga. Travel plenty though, and but it's not the same. Traveling and spending a week or 2 weeks, even a month in another city, it isn't really the same as like setting up that's your home base, right? And really trying to get to know locals. Yeah. Has it been difficult getting into Chattanooga? Because I hear from other friends that move here, other people I meet, are like, man, getting into the network here in Chattanooga was hard because it's kind of still got that small town vibe a little bit, and plus I think there's a little like old money vibe too, but likes to stay almost like that's changing though with new money coming in. But I'm curious your take on it.
Well, it's a challenge. We were in Atlanta for 20 years, and I had friends that I knew and did things with, but they kept their worlds separated. They were part of a country club, or they went to one of the Baylor, GPS, Macaulay equivalents in those schools, and they kept those people separate from the rest. So I don't think Chattanooga's different in that respect, in that people are just used to their own habits and ways and things like that. So that's not unusual. There are a lot of people that have moved here in the last 5 years or so, like I have, that are energized and want to get plugged in. And that's why I just feel fortunate that Collab folks have let me sit with them just to see well, let me back up. Brickyard is changing Chattanooga. They've invested in at least 55. Sorry, Matt and Cam, I didn't check the website this morning. It may be more. But they've invested in 55 companies. They come here to Chattanooga for a time. Some of them are going to stay here, and that's going to change Chattanooga for the better. The Collab switched to bringing a few companies in every year with different disciplines, different focus for some of the big partners here: TVA, EPB, Volkswagen, Kingco, Transco, companies that can help these big companies here, and it'll be a win-win situation.
Yeah.
So I think what CoLab is doing is really interesting, bringing there's 20 or so companies here. And if anybody's interested in mentoring opportunities with CoLab, we'll put something in the notes after this, how to do that, because just making the connections for the company here can help keep those Chattanooga companies here. But part of the challenge, if somebody like myself that moved here, someone to give me the advice, just go to CoLab or hang out some of these opportunities. That's one of the reasons we created the Chattanooga Founders Forum. Somebody that's new here, come and plug in, because you never know.
Yeah.
So there's no, I just moved to Chattanooga.com where people have to register.
Right.
So,
Right.
so it's a challenge to find, and just want to give people opportunities to learn about all the interesting things going on. I met with some folks a couple of weeks ago that have a really interesting fulfillment business here in Chattanooga, and they say they have customers from all around the country and around the world, but they don't know many people here in Chattanooga.
Yeah.
The iFixit guys relocated their headquarters here, which is cool. So there's lots of things going on, and I just interesting to learn what's going on here.
Why do you think, or what would if you had an elevator pitch for a company to move to Chattanooga, what would it be?
The elevator pitch for a company to move to Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of what Brickyard appeal to is they get the people here, and there's not all the distractions. You can move around. Brickyard is product market fit boot camp. Those founders can stay there. They have the things they need: a health club, the cold plunge, the sauna, the apartments, the food, or whatever. That's right there. But also, if you're in Atlanta, which was a wonderful place, we enjoyed our 20 years there, but it's a challenge to get from Peachtree City to I don't know, someplace in Kennesaw or whatever. It's just that it's really a challenge. So one of the things that we like about Chattanooga is just the ease of getting around, and making the connections here. It's Kansas. Nobody asked me to be on a podcast in Atlanta, so I appreciate the opportunity here, Sam.
Absolutely. Hey, one thing that stands out, what's kept me here is the outdoors. In Chattanooga, it's a pretty city. You
Right.
Tennessee River running right through the middle of it. And have you been down the River Gorge or spent much time in there? Ever taken a boat ride through the Tennessee River Gorge?
We were fortunate to go on the through there, the Suck Creek Road, and get on the boat and go around past the what's the visitor center? Raccoon Mountain Visitor Center. Yeah. I'm still looking to get down into the visitor center there. We visited the top floors, but I'd love to go down into
the actual mountain, basically.
Yes.
I want to see that too.
Yeah.
That looks like if there's some place to hide a missile, I think it would be there. Like a James Bond film, because they have those tunnels that go in.
Oh,
and for those listening that don't know what we're talking about, it's a reservoir, a TVA Raccoon Mountain Reservoir, and so they pump all that water up, and it fills up the lake, and then the water rushes down flumes and spins turbines, and it generates power during high peak cycles. But when you're at the bottom of the mountain, you can look back into the mountain, and they got those access tunnels that have big gates, and it looks like a James Bond, like Goldeneye. I think was one of the films that.
I think it'd be an ideal setting for a Chattanooga Founders Forum meeting in the future. So anybody listening, please let us know, and we'll see if we can put that together. We've done a couple of field trips as well. So Tim Pearson gave the group a tour of Chattanooga whiskey, which was great.
Yep.
And
did he let you drink off the still? Did you get that?
I'm trying to remember. I think they gave a sample of what comes out of there to a few folks. Yeah.
If he gives you the white lightning, so to say, like the clear straight moonshine at that point out of the still, it's I don't know what proof, 120 plus, whatever it is. It might take your memory away. So he may have given it to you.
Yeah, I probably forgot. Yeah. But there's so many interesting things like that going on here, so that's interesting. So I think your question was, what would the elevator pitch be? Is this a place where you could focus on your business? Is quality of life and focus on your business here?
Yeah.
So and you have the resource that you need. One of the things that, again, I'd like to say that we planned on this, but it's been a nice benefit of being here in Chattanooga. It's 2 hours to Nashville, 2 hours to Knoxville, 2 hours to Birmingham or Huntsville, those areas, and it's easy to get around. And I tell all my Atlanta buddies, I said, if I leave at 6 in the morning or 10 in the morning, I can be at the Brave Stadium in Atlanta in 90 minutes. It might take me 90 minutes more to get to the airport or
Right.
Buckhead, but I can be there at those times. But it is for our personally, this is a great quality of life, and I think it's a great place to live, and we're just delighted with the growing scene here.
Yeah. I had Charlie Brock on the podcast. It hasn't released yet, but I guess that was last week or week before. My weeks kind of all run together at this point. But we were talking some about this corridor where quantum's concerned. 'Cause we have EPB here. We've got known for the fastest residential internet and potentially commercial internet. Don't quote me on that, but up to 25 gigs now. But then they've now offered a quantum computer, so for basically public access to quantum computing, and us having Oak Ridge National Laboratory right up the road. And you were kind of building this corridor, not to mention the physical corridor of 24 and 75. And it seems like there's a lot of things that people don't realize Chattanooga is perfectly placed for. Fast internet, plus we have electricity, you have TVA, and it's kind of a perfect setup for a lot of industries to really flourish here. Logistics, computing.
I agree with you. The location isn't as important to start a business. It depends on what type of business it is in terms of getting the ability to scale. That's one of the things that I've heard from some founders here that are that have bigger workforces, but maybe with AI, you don't need as big a workforce anymore. So that's it. The other thing too that we were advised 5 years ago when we got here is Chattanooga is a great place to go, but avoid the interstates if you can.
Oh, yeah.
That was before the 75-24 interchange was built. We'll see. I know people, sometimes it backs up, and you can see the strategic importance of Chattanooga during the Civil War. If 24 does ever get back up, there aren't any many alternate routes around here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I missed your question there or not.
It may have just been a statement. I don't know. But that may have been.
It depends on what types of business you're trying to do, and it's constantly changing. The other thing too is I'm a tech optimist, and we've used Waymo when we go to other cities and things like that. So a lot of these things that are traffic issues now, they may not be if we get more autonomous vehicles. I think you have to talk with the dynamo experts about the trucking business, how, if there's ways that they can help with that process and things like that.
Right.
The transportation. So it's definitely transportation.
Gotcha. Well, as far as businesses that you're looking for, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? And you have or you want to find them, or what?
No, I'm happy. I have a Calendly link on any email I've sent, probably since 2018, where I reserve some spots in case a founder can reach out. I'm always eager to talk with founders about their opportunities, or just let people know about how the process works. A lot of founders I'll meet say, you have a really interesting business, but this is not a candidate for risk capital. If you do need money, there's other sources that could be better for you than going to angel investors or VCs, because your business model is not going to be a good fit for them. And it's better to hear that now than later. You don't need to raise capital if you're, like I say, the best place to get money is from customers if you can.
Yeah.
So that was one part of the question. What was the other?
I guess getting a hold of you.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn is good. I haven't had a business card in many, many years. Since pre-COVID, that's a good way to get in touch with me. If you're an early stage company with an MVP, minimum viable product, paid or unpaid pilot, that's a candidate for Atlanta Tech Angels. And you can go to angelatlanta.com. There's an online application. Or VentureSouth, they prefer a warm introduction. They want companies a little bit later stage. And so I do it, and my counterparts in the other 20 cities that VentureSouth has chapters in, and the other members talk to founders and see if it's a good fit, and then we make a warm introduction to the people. They centralize the selection process in Greenville, South Carolina headquarters. And so that's so it's just part of the process. So the other thing too is when I talk to founders, your pitch that we're talking about, the elevator pitch,
Yeah.
that's your movie trailer, not your movie. Right? You want to get, and there's a whole science about movie trailers, and maybe you're the marketing guru as well. You know how to hook people. So the movie trailers are 2 minutes long, and it's to get you interested to watch a 2-hour movie.
Sure.
So the tip for founders is come up. There's a Georgia Tech professor who used to say that come up with a dozen words that will make somebody want to get in a plane to come visit you. What is that? The statement, what can you do to pique somebody's curiosity and interest so that they'll want to meet with you? Because you talked about the process earlier. It's rare that investors will have a conversation with the founder, write a check right away. There's a whole diligence process that you go through that can take weeks or up to a couple of months, depending on how involved it is and how late stage the company is. So make the connection and hook the audience, and then get your movie trailer, and then do the movie.
Do you have anything? It's really good advice, by the way, especially the hook part. A lot of people miss that. That's a challenging part too. I mean, that's something we struggle with. It's always
people are scattered. Their attention spans are all over the place. Now that we're on email, if you get emails from me, sometimes you might get the subject line be 2 things, and number 1's a bullet point, number 2 is a bullet point. Going back to Kevin Kelly again, he says always put a deadline on everything. So that way, I'll get an. If you're a founder and you want to reach out to me, suggest a time for coffee. Don't say let's get coffee the next 2 weeks. Say, are you available next Friday at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And that starts the conversation, because it's just you want to make sure that you use your time wisely and open-ended. Give me and if I'm not available at 2 or 3 on that Friday, I will propose another time that might be. But just kind of think of it in terms of the audience, what the person on the receiving end is looking for.
Like a call to action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Keep it moving forward. Yeah, I like that. All right, I got something fun I want to try here.
Okay. Uh-oh. Do I brace myself?
I'm going to ask my Claude.
Oh.
Nothing nervous. Hold on. Let me find it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's see what it comes up with. We're going to do like a lightning round of questions.
Oh, okay.
Just real short.
Hands on the buzzer?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to ask it for,
Is Sam keeping score over here?
She better be.
Okay.
Making notes of the fun things we said. Lightning round questions. All right, I'm always curious what it's going to come up with.
Oh.
It's thinking. It's cutting down trees right now, so it can give me 5 questions. All right, so what is one book that changed the way you think about business?
One book.
You know a lot of books, too, from the last time we met. So
Well, I'm going to do the free association thing. The Moneyball movie is great for anybody that wants to get into startups or investors. Because if you remember the scouts sitting around there's the way they used to do it, and he's got a baseball body, or he's got an ugly girlfriend, or all these qualitative things, how they try to talk about baseball players, and they come in and put a more scientific rigor around it. And was it Brad Pitt's characters, adapt or die for the old scouts. So that's a book that comes to mind when I think about not business in general, but that's the first one that popped in my head about if you want to be an angel investor, read or Moneyball or watch the movie.
Okay. All right.
Because you have to change the way you think about things.
All right. Best piece of advice you have ever received?
I've ever received. I'm always swayed by the recent podcast that I look at, and there's one that I think I said this with the Knowledge Project, and they talked about this was the founder of Container Store. The piece of knowledge is communication is leadership. So if you're working with other folks or groups, whether they're direct reports or colleagues like I have, let them know what's going on, and sooner rather than later, and just keep them updated, because people don't know what's going on. And even an example of this from somebody here in Chattanooga that gave me a book, if you're running late for a meeting, send somebody, hey, I think this meeting's running later. I might be 5 or 10 minutes late. Once you do that, you're no longer late. So that falls under that communication is leadership.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. What is one tool or app you cannot run your business without?
App I can't run my business without? Well, one of the things now I'm in the making connections thing, so LinkedIn. Okay. I've used LinkedIn. I mentioned before I haven't had a business card probably since 2018. Okay. So I just use LinkedIn as a way to connect. We were talking before about probably have to update my LinkedIn profile more up to date, but that's a place where you go. We were talking about your elevator pitch there. It starts there. That's the way that you present yourself on social media. So that's also, I found John Doerr's a VC that was very successful and influential at Kleiner Perkins, and his statement was, ideas are easy, execution is everything. It takes a team to win. And when I saw that, that's kind of like business haiku for me. Yeah. So I post it everywhere on my social media. So I probably rely on LinkedIn too much, but don't send me email there. Send me an email to my email address, please.
All right, noted. If you can go back and tell your younger self one thing before starting out, what would it be?
My younger self is make the connection, take the risk. There's a great, this was another podcast recently. One of these overarching principles is, and they call in the startup community, it's called go first, but go first and be positive. Okay. To make the connection. You sit back, or your younger self, I was always worried about looking silly or foolish. And sure. Now that I'm older, I realize I've been silly and foolish the whole time anyway. So might as well just go ahead and ask the question. It might lead to something.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know that feeling of, yeah. All right.
No, I was going to say, I get to work with these analysts, and I tell them, if you think something's a silly question, it's not, go ahead and ask it, because I've asked a lot sillier questions than you could ever think of. So go first and be positive is a great one that I recently got off of a podcast.
Okay. All right, last one. What does success look like to you 5 years from now?
That's a great question. Well, I enjoy what I'm doing now. I don't have a boss. It's permissionless. So it would be nice to have, let me back up. Angel investing has been intellectually rewarding because we learn about these new technologies and new business models and all kinds of intriguing founders. It's emotionally rewarding, like when Ryan Seberg gets some money and gets his thing going. Financially rewarding, Jerry's still out on that. So I am, I think Will Rogers was the one where I saw the quote first. He says, I'm not worried about return on capital. I'm worried about return of capital. So if I can get my money back and keep playing the game, that'll be good. So in 5 years from now, if I'm still playing the angel investing game, that will be success. In terms from a business standpoint, there's all kinds of other success in terms of other personal types of measures. But in terms of this, it's really intriguing it's fascinating. And there are people that are changing things all the time. And again, I'm techno-optimist, so I think there's going to come up with things that we can't even imagine now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially if AI. It's going to expedite everything.
Well, just look, people. It's fun. I had a call with a founder. This just popped in my head, free association, bonus question. And she said, we're having a conversation. She's outside the U.S., and she said, I had to drop off and go on my hotspot because the internet on the Zoom failed here. Yeah. And this was 2020. It was a year and a half ago. I said, if we were in 2019, no one knew what you were talking about.
Right.
And just look how quickly we adapted to all these other things. So 5 years from now in 2031, who knows what? I may be talking to a holographic Sam, and you may be on your island someplace and just, have what do they call it? Volumetric video.
I like this 5-year plan.
Yeah, so
you sold me at the island part.
You'll have your Spectruss worldwide headquarters or whatever from space. So I don't know. but it's interesting, and I enjoy. Doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, well, good. Well, I know we kind of jumped around here, but I've enjoyed talking with you about all this. There's plenty more things I want to pick your brain about, and maybe it's a second podcast. But is there anything that I missed that you wanted to say?
Well, I think again, I'm always swayed by the last podcast I listened to. I listened to a recent podcast, and this is advice for founders. We say position your product and follow your customers and things like that. Jeff Bezos started Amazon, like 1990s or something. He knew that he wanted to do the everything store. That was always his vision. But he started with books. Why did he start with books? Books are easy to ship. They don't break. They don't spoil. They don't need repairs. They rarely get returned. So just think about what he's built Amazon into, but he started with books. So now when I meet with founders, having listened to that podcast a couple weeks ago, I'll say, what is your equivalent of books? What is the equivalent of shipping books for your business right now? I meet a founder that's going to use AI to change the real estate market. And I'll say, well, have you met Gumption, the folks here in Chattanooga that are matching the commercial lenders with the people with commercial properties? Oh, no, that's really interesting. So think about if you're a founder and you've got a business idea, and I don't want to dampen your enthusiasm anyway, but what can you do that is like Amazon starting with books? Because that's the first step that they took to build one of the premier companies here in the world.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's great advice. It's something that I struggle with still. Yeah.
We knew it. We know Amazon started as even when you're 10 years old,
Right.
probably knew that Amazon was because that's how they started. But why did they start that way? And think about it. And that's just one of those ones that you have to say. There's a path that can make you more successful than others, and that's one. So simplify where you can, and most important things get traction.
Yeah, I mean, it simplifies every part from your go-to-market strategy, your ad dollars, the target demographic you're going after, your messaging, websites, all of it. It makes it much more simple.
So what can I do to help you? What's your ideal customer profile look like? So if I run across somebody to send to Spectruss.
That is a very good question. It's something we're struggling with is exactly what you're talking about. And because originally we started out building websites, and that was kind of a niche. All we did was just websites. And I had a buddy who built skyscrapers. And he made a bunch of money in Atlanta building big buildings down there. And he told me, he's retired now, and he told me, he's like, if you want to make money in Chattanooga, you can't be a skyscraper builder because you'll build one every 40 years or none at all because we don't really have any true skyscrapers. So you got to be a generalist contractor, right? Or maybe residential or commercial, but generalist basically. In Atlanta, if you're a generalist contractor, you'll just blend in. So you got to be a specialist in something, right? And niche down. And over the years, 14 and a half years, we haven't really niche. We tried one with the aesthetic marketing partners and niched on that, but wound up not really. The med spa was kind of some of our target, and that got so volatile there for a while that we wound up. It's still out there and it still brings us in leads, but long story short, the full service marketing advertising without one niche, it's kind of been a challenge. We have verticals like home services. We have a lot in home service businesses. We've become very good at those, and like lead generation is the main part they need. But then as they grow and become bigger, they also need brand building, brand trust. You look at some of the big players like Hiller and those types of businesses. They do a great job at everything. Or AFS. A lot of these are becoming giant companies. So that's one that home services, we have campaigns running for that, and that's one of the verticals we're focusing on. But at this point, we've worked in some regard with over 250 companies all across the board. But we've kind of found ourselves lost from time to time of like, well, we can work with anyone, but how do you market to anyone, or market advertising company? And so that's something we're always working on. And, we have our main site that's kind of a little more generalized, but then we spend our ad dollars focused on one vertical at a time and go after those. So long answer, shorter, we look for companies that want to grow. Motivated to grow. They have some sort of growth goal in mind, and then we want to pair whatever they need within our wheelhouse, which is marketing, advertising. Pair what they need to get to that goal. So if it's 30% increase in revenue in 18 or 24 months, or whatever the number is, which that's lofty, depending on where they're at. It's more conservative at 8 to 10% growth. So doing an assessment for them, understanding where they're at, looking for opportunities, and then helping them reach that goal.
Well, home services seems like one of the later places where robots will take over.
It's where private equity is really looking right now because there's also a lot of opportunities with systems and operations and lack of scalability for a lot of them. So we've seen a lot of our clients get bought up by PE and then merge those together, and a lot of opportunity to make money.
Economies of scale. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thanks for coming on. It's great chatting with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look forward to attending some more of your networking events coming up.
Well, we got June 16th at the arena. It will be the next Chattanooga Founders Forum.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. And if anyone wants to find you, look you up, and we'll put it in the description as well. But Jay Shaffer on LinkedIn, and probably best place or email.
Jay at VentureSouth, JAY at VentureSouth.vc is the easiest one to remember for anybody listening.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thanks
Jay.
so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it, Sam.
Thank you. I appreciate it.